Hello and welcome to the ninth day of January 2022. My name is Kurt. This is my Good Life meditation. This is something that I do every day to remind myself of my objectives and principles and to check to see how I did yesterday with regard to these and to plan the coming day. First, yesterday. The day started off really well. It was a Saturday, and I got up, did my Good Life, read my Bible, then I took the dogs for a good walk. Ollie had been feeling a little under the weather lately, so I didn't take them for a very long walk. I brought them home pretty quickly after they'd finished their business. Then I embarked on a nice, very long walk of my own. Usually after work I climb Mount Fortitude behind my house. So I decided to climb it in the morning. And while I did so, and then some, I climbed Mount Fortitude and then I went into the wilderness behind it for a ways. And while I was doing that, I decided to work on editing my newest book, The Good Life. You know, the way I work, the way I write, is that I write and then I edit. So if I ever produce another book, don't buy the first release of it, because it gets better. So at least I think so over time. And I did a really good job of editing while I was walking. Only stumbled a couple of times, but the edits were good edits, constructive work. And then I thought that when I got back, I would spend time and put those edits into the actual text, but I didn't. You know, I shouldn't be so hard on myself. In fact, that's not the goal of Saturdays. The goal of Saturdays is to do big house cleaning, do laundry, and do shopping for the week. And Yumiko and I did that. No wonder I was tired. I was pretty worn out. I wound up spending the entire afternoon. Well, we were gone pretty much all day. We were gone until like 4:30 p.m. You know, the morning here, and then the afternoon taking care of all that stuff, shopping. Anyway, the point is, I didn't do the editing work, and I was a little hard on myself at that time because I really wanted to do that. Instead, I wound up kind of binge watching. I watched 3 episodes of Midnight Diner. Even though there's a season 3 that I haven't seen yet, I went back to season 1 and started over, just because I love that show so much. This time I'm watching it with with English subtitles on. I watched it. This is like my 3rd time to watch it, so I'm using it to help me with my Japanese, and also I just love the show. There, I think that was yesterday. Let's do the Good Life. I have 7 objectives that I'm working to achieve in the course of life. These are: 1, to be always ready to die. 2, at all times have as much of my life in order that I can die and my wife and daughter will not suffer unduly. Mainly, I need to have my finances in order, my house in order. This includes making sure that my wife has ready access to all the accounts, passwords, etc., and making sure that there's money to help them get by. 2, making sure that my relationships are in a sound condition, so that if I wink out today, I've said I love you to everybody. And I've worked on resolving all the relationships that I can. There's some relationships, like my relationship with my mother, that they simply are what they are. I've done my best. I don't know that I can do anything more with that other than keeping a constant pulse of reaching out. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Because the day will come when she will need me. And I want her to know I'm here. And then the third part of that is to have my art in order. And my art basically boils down to this book, Going Alone. This is the book where I tell the story of how I came up with the good life, this set of objectives and principles, what experiences led to that. And then there's a whole chapter in here called The Good Life, where, pardon me, I relate all of these objectives and principles and explain them. Pardon me. And that was my art. Excuse me again. That was my life's objective. And that's complete. So yeah, so I guess I'm pretty much ready to go. I don't want to go, but things, my affairs are square. My bags are packed. 2, to make good and effective use of time. To not squander my days. 3, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's precisely these 7 objectives and principles that I'm talking about. And I do that by every day thinking about them and relating them as I'm doing now. Next is the cultivation of good emotional reactions. Becoming a man who reacts well to whatever happens in life. Doesn't fly off the handle. Is sober of mind and considerate of response. That's probably been the very best benefit of all of this effort over the last, 6-7 years that I've been trying to do this, is that sober of mind, sobriety of mind. That's the best part. Next is the performance of good actions. Just to do good things throughout the day. Small things, big things, things of every sort, and every size, and every character. Making the world an objectively better place. The next objective is to recognize true limits and true opportunity. To not live my life fooled by what is possible, or giving up, or something might be possible. But to assess carefully and to recognize where possibilities really reside. It's a tough thing, that, because if you go too hard, you'll cut yourself out of good possibilities. And if you go too soft, you'll lead yourself off a cliff. Now the last objective is to do just one thing at a time, and to always do that thing slowly. One thing slowly. That's another one like that. Sobriety of thought, sobriety of mind. The one thing slowly is really becoming part of me. And I'm confident of this because I think and I I think about it every day, and I actively apply my effort to do that. Okay, those are my 7 objectives. Let's recite my principles. These are the principle of war. To always be fighting against my own propositions of truth, as well as the propositions of truth of others, at least those that have any significance. 2, the principle of reason. To use reason as my instrument in identifying what is potentially true. And insofar as my thoughts go, I want to be honest, objective, and skeptical. Next is the homunculus, the concept of a little man who lives inside my head. My consciousness, actually, and a reminder that that consciousness is a very fast, fleeting thing that is as subject to death as the rest of me, and will wink out and die very soon, never again to be. The home of good and evil. The Anchorhold. The Anchorhold is a concept that just reminds me that my consciousness is trapped. And I like to picture the consciousness, the homunculus, standing on a little rock protruding out of the sea with the waves and the wind and the tides, and never getting off. And shouting at others across the waters, indistinctly heard, hearing indistinctly. That is our lives. We are always alone, utterly. And in fact, utterly isn't the word I meant. In fact, we get the sense that we're with others because that's the way we are as social creatures. But you can hold my hand all you like at the moment of my death. And I'm still going to fade into the sea on my own. It doesn't mean that your hand isn't comforting to me. But it really never crosses the sea. Not truly. Not in any more significant a way other than to provide companionship and comfort. Like two inmates whispering between the cells of their cage, their bars, their jail. Comforting, but still in solitude. Now, I don't say these things because I'm necessarily a dark or depressive person, nor do I seek to make anybody else like that. It's just simply how I see the world. Because I've been near Mount Wildness, and I've seen the great indifference. I've apprehended it. You can't really see it because it doesn't exist. Apprehended its absence. Next comes the home of good and evil, as I said earlier. This is just a reminder that good and evil, right and wrong, are not some absolute standard in the universe that we abide, but are just concepts that we maintain in our minds, that we develop. Opinions, really. They become more substantive when we share and compare with others and come to some agreement. Next is the principle of purpose. The purpose of my life is to live well, to live a virtuous life, where virtue is defined as seeking the improvement of the well-being, particularly of thinking creatures, where well-being can basically be boiled down to happiness. I also have a purpose to be a father and to share my mission, my message, going alone. Next comes the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, including us, atoms and molecules. And even before we die, we begin to fall to pieces. The substance that I am is beginning to weather. Well, it's on its way, well on its way to weathering, faltering. My mind is going away, not as sharp, more fatigued, like the rest of me. We are like sandcastles, something produced by the universe, in place for a little bit, fast weathering and utterly failing in the end. One day the plot of sand where we stand will be indistinguishable from every beach on earth. The next principle is called the principle of nature. And it's simply a reminder that everything has a particular nature, and everyone has a particular nature, some way of being, some character about them or it, some inertia of movement or life. And when we identify that nature and recognize it and remember that, then we're going to live better, because we won't be expecting anything other than the nature of the thing or the person or the creature. Next is the pirate ride. This principle suggests that free will is an illusion, that we can make any choice that we want, although in the end we would never have made any choice other than the one that we actually did. Strange thing I believe that because I think that our decisions are not standalone. They are the consequence of everything that's ever happened that led up to that moment in our lives and in our environment. And all of these other factors nudge us and push us and jostle us to fall in a certain way towards a certain decision. And if the universe were to replay itself exactly the same over and over, we would always make that same decision, because there's so much more to our decisions than just us. In fact, we are little more than instruments to enact that decision that was made for us by the collective force of the universe, not consciously, but through inertia. Now, this is something that I can't demonstrate as true, so I hold it as a tentative truth. I almost use a little bit of faith, which kind of makes me a little ill to think. The next principle is maturity. Maturity arrives when we are wise and strong. Wise in the remembrance of our past successes and failures, and strong to endeavor to succeed again and to avoid the mistakes. That's a mature person. Next is the social principle. We are social creatures, you and I. We need each other. And our best living is when we're living that social life. So seek out one another and live for one another. The next principle is called public speaking. It's a suggestion to be very careful about what we say, to use words that others are likely to understand, so as to avoid confusion. Pardon me. To use a great economy of words, to put margins of space between our utterances, between our paragraphs, and to not be afraid to be quiet when we either have nothing to say or nothing good to say. And above all, to never, ever gossip. Where gossip is clearly identified as anything that we say about another person who is not there, that we would be embarrassed if they knew that we had said it. Don't say those things. Bite the tongue. Let the conversation falter. Let the joy and pleasure of the moment of spending time with someone be enhanced by good, effective communications, wholesome communications rather than communications at the expense, pleasure derived at the expense of someone else. Next comes temperance, which is a suggestion that we consume little. Food, drink, work, play, all the things. Even life. Just nibble bits. 3 sub-principles. These are suffering, because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. Simplicity, because a simple life is a temperate life. And then apathy, which is our ability to recognize what is not within our control and to disconnect from that, at least from the ability for that circumstance or incidents to emotionally galvanize us in any way. It happens. We engage with it. We act upon it. We respond. But we are not emotionally invested because it's outside of our control. I'm thinking of some examples, but I'm hesitant to share them because when I share them, they come out. They're so visceral that they come out the wrong way. They have the wrong impact. So I won't share those. I'm not strong enough yet. I'm not strong enough to weather the thought of you misinterpreting what I mean and thinking me a monster. But I'll give it a try. The death of a loved one is a really interesting example. If that death occurs in such a way that is indeed outside of our control, like a traffic accident that was a pure accident, out of the blue, couldn't have been avoided, such things happen. I'm not strong enough, nor do I even know that I want to be, but I want to be. To be apathetic about that. To recognize the fact that take that in and somehow come out the other side with my balance and equanimity intact. Hi, Rudy. Where's Ollie? Hi, Ollie. Want to come up here? Somehow, at least in the Stoic tradition, that seems to be possible. It's more apathy than I can muster, though. The next principle is the horror show. The remembrance that life is chock full of horror, as I just mentioned. And to be ready for that. And to be ready to work to abate that, to offer some relief and comfort. But mostly, to remember that. Keep an honest perspective and idea about what life really is. There's a lot of beauty and a lot of love, but it sure is a horror show. The next principle is called that which must be borne. And it's a reminder that there's so much, especially as we grow and become an adult and maybe marry and have a family, so much that we have to bear in life. Simple things like a tough job or missing out on a dream or illness or the death of a loved one in an automobile accident or anything at all that's part of the horror show. These things we just must bear. And I have a sub-principle for this one, called the hand on the tiller. Imagine a sailboat with the wind blowing us in a particular direction. Maybe the direction of safer waters, better waters, or a beautiful island or something. Hold a hand on the tiller to steady the course. As we navigate those seas. The next principle is the principle of distraction. A suggestion that we spend our lives deliberately distracting ourselves with all the things that we do and all the things that we love. Anything at all, so that we don't have to see that awful emptiness of the universe that I call the great indifference. Life is one big, long distraction. Even insofar as telling ourselves that the great indifference doesn't exist. That we'll go on forever after we're dead. As long as we've believed correctly and offered the correct propitiation. Why do we do that? Because it's so much easier to believe that that's true than to face the apparent fact that there is no life after death, and that oblivion is eternal, for us at least. That was the next principle, which is the principle of agency and the great indifference. You and I and all living things are agents. And it's comforting to see ourselves and other agents. My little dogs here. The very fact of living, that they're here with me, is a comfort. The utter absence of all these agents reveals the great indifference, which is not at all comforting. Pardon me. The next is the risk of avoiding risk. Life includes the risks that we all know by our upbringing, that we must attend to. Working and paying bills and creating security, etc., etc. So we attend to those risks by getting an education, finding the best job we can, finding and marrying someone that will be a good partner, raising children and saving for their college, buying a house, saving for our own retirement, and staying warm inside our little nest while the dangers of life, the horror show churns outside. Those are the surface level risks. And if we've been raised well and encouraged, we mostly know how to attend to that. Whether we actually do or not is another thing. But there's another risk, the deep, deep risk of not listening to that little voice that speaks up and tells us, but wait, there's more. That little voice that suggests that we want to do something with our lives other than the safe and the sound. Have some adventure. It's tough to do both. My formula that I recommend is that on the cusp of adulthood, have a simple plan. That plan is to go to school, get a bachelor's degree at least. Even if it's not something you can turn into a job, it's something that will prove useful throughout life, if not for career, for personal reasons. The experience of college is a very good one. So get that degree. That should take you up to your 22, 24, something like that, depending on how long you take. Then the remaining half decade is yours for your great life adventure. Go do it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't know what it is. But go do it. And then come back to us at age 30-ish. 30, 31, 32, whatever. And then you can attend to the surface level risks. You know, the job, spouse, family. If you want to go those routes, there's nothing wrong with spending your life alone. But watch out for the social principle thing I told you about before. The universe tends to reward us for having family, for making families. There's some, especially as you get older, there's some deep satisfaction that comes of having reproduced and seeing your genes in the next generation. I believe that that's manifest in our DNA. We are wired to do that. So if you want to enjoy that visceral satisfaction, then pursue that route. But watch out. Don't do it at the expense of the kids. If you're not suited or interested in being a parent, then don't become a parent, because otherwise the kids will suffer. And you'll suffer too. But you get the picture, right? Give yourself the decade of the 20s to get educated and have a lot of fun. Have an adventure. Just don't get anybody pregnant or kill anybody or yourself if you can avoid it. But do come back to us. Dirty, bruised, bleeding, crippled perhaps, maybe even dead. But come back to us, nevertheless, smiling ear to ear with whatever it is you did. That will be your great life adventure. That will be the nucleus of an experience that will carry you through life. And when when the tough times come, you won't be thinking to yourself, gosh, if only I'd done the other thing. Because you will have done it. You'll have done the other thing. And now you can weather this thing with that satisfaction. And then carry on through life. And one day, you'll write your own story, maybe. The next principle is called sin and damnation. The sins in my worldview are falsity. Sorry, I got rid of that one. Well, maybe I should bring it back because it keeps popping back up. Maybe I'll keep it. I'll experiment with it for a little bit. Falsity is being knowingly false. You know, that's a really good one. I should keep it back. I should bring it back. I must have to put it back in the damn book. Falsity is being knowingly false. Knowingly being false. Of course that's a sin. Credulity, an overeagerness to believe. Hope, which is, it's just wanting something with no plan or effort, which just gets you, just has you stewing in your own juices. I can't see any virtue in that, unless you couple it with something, unless you create a plan and begin executing that plan. But then that's no longer hope. That's a plan. That's action. That's living. So hope alone is a sin because it doesn't do anything. The next sin is faith, because faith has no inherent virtue. And we know that because if we simply ask ourselves, is there anything that's false that we could not believe by faith? I didn't word that very well. Is there anything false that we couldn't believe with faith? And the answer is no. We could believe anything at all, including anything that's false, by faith, which that fact alone disqualifies faith from being a virtue. Faith just gets us to a place that we want to be so badly. And we haven't got any other way to get there. Because if we had good reasons to believe, we would use those. But without good reasons, we're just going to go ahead and believe and call that fact of believing evidence enough, which is utter and complete nonsense. So faith is a paramount sin in my worldview, as is superstition, dogma, and authority. And then finally, gossip again. The next principle is complete oblivion. When we die, we will be utterly gone and erased from the universe. This thing, who we are. Maybe some memory of us will remain in the minds of those who cared about us. Maybe our words will linger a bit in our writings, or whatever we've done, our impact. But even our DNA will be wiped out. It only takes about 7 generations after us, 7, our children's 7 times out, before those individuals, their DNA is distinct enough from us that they're no different than strangers. So our DNA will push on, but we will be, our persons will be gone, our minds will be gone, our DNA will utterly be reduced to anonymity. And if we're lucky, our influence will linger for a while, but it'll eventually, we won't have any sight or sight. It won't be recognizable as ours anymore. If we're really, really lucky, our memory might carry on. But to what end? Even that'll be gone one day. So we're going to be completely gone. It's a sobering thought. Apparently true. As a result, it means that it's a strong imperative to do something with our lives now, because we're not going to see anybody that we left behind, because they're going to be dead and we're going to be dead. we're not going to meet each other in any afterlife, because it appears that there is no afterlife. So that means we can't reconcile any wrong or if we died on bad terms with anybody. The only chance we can do that is now while we're alive. There won't be any justice after death, because there's nowhere for the justice to occur, and no one to apply the justice, and no one to receive the justice, because we'll be dead and there is no God. So, and no afterlife. So with that, it's in our best interest to connect with those we want to connect with during this life. Do it today. Reconcile with them and seek after justice. Not vigilante justice, but pursue justice by its by sanctioned means in the here and now, while we have a chance. The next principle is called the Great Life Adventure. It's simply a suggestion that we give ourselves one or more really interesting, fun, and challenging experiences in life. Sometimes more challenging than fun, but sometimes a lot of fun too. That will become the centerpiece of our experience of life and who we are. Coming back to what I was saying before about the risk of avoiding risk, that early life, that decade of our 20s, having that experience or experiences that really form who we are. That's the Great Life Adventure. But do it soon, because as we get older, we become fragile and timid and scared and weak. Even though our resources may be better, we might have more money and safety and more free time than ever before. But what timid things we do become in our old age, even if we are strong, because we're more aware of just how dangerous the world is. We're wiser, we're more mature, less willing to take risks. So if you decide to postpone that great life adventure until after retirement, you might be able to have it, but it won't be the same. It might take the form of a motorhome trip, or a guided holiday in Europe. I'm holding back because so many of the things, the people in my life, they actually do, that's what they do, right? And I don't want to impugn that, but it's true. I mean, some people just aren't interested in the more risky stuff. So I'm not speaking to them, and I don't want to make it sound that way. But we're not likely to do the scary stuff when we get older. I'll just leave it at that. The next principle is the season of philosophy, which is a time of our life to record what we've learned along the way, whatever was of value, to share with others. The key thing in that is that when the words come, record them in that moment, because once they're gone, once the words are gone, they don't come back. So if you hear a little buzz in your ear telling you muzz, 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 a little bit of wisdom that's been compiled of your life, then get out that little notebook, write it down, squirrel it away someplace safe so that your kids will find it when you're gone. You won't get a second chance. If you do get a second chance, you won't get a second chance. It'll be different. The bullseye aim is next. Life is this striving after the mark, the center. Usually we are off by some degree. Every now and then we hit it, but usually we miss, sometimes completely. That's just the way the universe works. So accept that as true. Try your best. You're going to miss. Oh, you got a good one. You hit it. Good for you. Carry on. Next comes the uphill climb. Life is this steady climb forward and upward into new areas of life. Upward, upward. And I just realized I missed two. Let's go back. I missed two principles. They kind of go together. So we'll go all the way back to about the middle. This is the principle of the best seat in the house, which is a reminder to not want to be anyone else or be anywhere else or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right now. The second principle is the Path of Wildness. The Path of Wildness is the first principle I ever came up with. And it's simply a hopeful way to break out of the inertia of whatever life circumstance we're in right now. So let's say, for example, you get an idea that you want to have an adventure, live some new life. Maybe that life is to go to Japan, perhaps, to have a couple of years of experience there or more. But you're not sure how to do that. So what I would recommend doing to get on the path of wildness is a three-step process. First, begin collecting the facts about how you can do this, the pros, the cons, what you need, etc. 2, do some deliberation about how you're going to do it. And then 3, make a decision and go for it. The nuance, however, is though that usually the collected information is never quite enough, and our deliberations can vacillate on this, going on and on and on while we get more information. And that's all right. So it's an iterative process. So if you're not sure, collect some more information, try again. The trick, the thing that gets us really on the path in earnest, is when we say, I've been collecting facts, I've been trying to gather more facts, I really want to do this, but I'm finding my life is passing me by and I'm just sitting here thinking about it. There comes a time when we can simply say, well, I'm going to do this. Well, what should I do? Should I stay or should I go? That's what I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do this. I'm going to make the decision. Am I going to go to Japan or am I going to stay? With all the facts, incomplete as they are, we make a decision and we lean into our first inclination. What was our gut feeling when we first started this process, or when we first had enough facts to have a feeling? What's our gut feeling? There was simply the feeling that we're trying to justify through facts. And then we're off. And then we zip the bag shut, close and lock the door, and we're on our way. We're on the path of wildness. Now, there's no guarantee that that decision was indeed the best decision, but it got us moving. It got us pushing into new life. And in a world where our years are finite and our opportunities are quite limited, making a decision and moving forward into and through new life can at least be interesting, if not rewarding and profitable, or or the best choice. So those are the two. Let's come back. We just did the uphill climb. Now we're almost done. After the uphill climb comes arena and utility. Life is a great arena for the execution of our living, and we use our principles to help us make good decisions. Then comes the principle called nothing is enough. A suggestion that we can do so much better with less. We just have to learn how to live without the distraction that acquisitions provide, the process of acquiring. And the last principle is the principle of fun, a reminder to enjoy life, not just work hard. This is a tough one for me, but I'm working on it. Okay, that was my good life meditation for today. My 7 objectives and 30 principles. Let's close with a forecast of the day. After I'm done with this, the dogs and I will go for a walk. It's still dark outside, so it won't be very long, but they'll do their business. I'll come back with them. I'll make their breakfast. And then I might work a little bit before my family gets up. I might work a little bit on the new book, the editing that I did yesterday. Try to get that into the system. And then Yumiko and I have to go back to Irvine today to pick up some stuff that arrived there. Not sure how that happened, but we're going to go pick it up and we'll make a day of it. We're going to go to Tanakaya for soba for lunch, and then we'll go to Tokyo Central, which is the supermarket, the Japanese supermarket. We'll make a day of it. It'll be a fun day. And I'm going to have a good time. I hope that you have a good time. I hope that your life is going well and that you're making an effort at refining what constitutes a good life in your world, in your view. I wish you all the best in that endeavor. And please remember to be safe, but not too safe.